Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Zia. Tonight we will be looking at the situation in Gaza, where Israel's aggression on Gaza has killed more than 41,000 innocent people. Of course, aid organizations are saying that Israel is blocking more than 83% of food aid from reaching the Gaza. And of course, when we look at the humanitarian workers who are working within this conflict zone, the deaths are of course growing, and the death toll is growing at an alarming rate. When we look at the protests that are happening all across the world regarding Gaza conflict, of course the pressure is mounting each day on Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, but he remains unmoved, and hence the conflict is growing each day. As the conflict has entered and the war has entered into its 11th month, of course, the call for peace is are now growing each day, and there is need for international community to work more towards it. In today's program, we will be looking at the ongoing situation in Gaza and what needs to be done by the international community, of course, to stop this conflict from spilling over within the larger region. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Khalid Taimur Akram. Welcome to the program. Mr. Taimur, when we look at the situation on ground, of course, UNICEF and WHO have called for humanitarian pauses for, of course, polio vaccination as well. So how do you evaluate the current situation, especially when we talk about the health sector and continuous attacks on humanitarian workers in Gaza?
Well, I think that September and October are very crucial months for the Israeli government, because whatever they are doing, they have the silent backing of the US government. And why I'm saying that these 2 months are very crucial, because the US elections are approaching in November, and both the parties have shown their full support for the present regime in Israel. And I think that whether it is the humanitarian aid or health or anything, the Israelis are not going to stop, because they also know that for all their consolidation of power in Gaza and to push out the Palestinians out of Gaza, for them these 2 months are going to be very, very important, because in these 2 months there is less likelihood that US would act. And as we know that
because of the upcoming elections,
because they have to get the Jewish votes, they have to get the Jewish funding, and both parties in US are looking at the elections right now, and for them their domestic politics is much more important than what is happening in Gaza. And Israel is taking full liberty of that thing. But after November, I'm sure that whosoever will win the elections, any kind of peace deal or anything which is going to happen in this conflict is going to happen after the new government would come in US.
Khalid, when we look at the situation, UN has recently called for, of course, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from West Bank. How do you think that International Court of Justice's advisory opinion plays into the larger context, and how can international community at this point in time put more pressure on Netanyahu's government?
Yeah, unfortunately, the decision of and the advisory note of the International Court of Justice has not been accepted by many of the European and powers, including US and Israel. UN is trying to play a role, but at the same time, till the time China, Russia and other major countries, including some Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, they will not put pressure inside one sitting inside the Security Council or within the UN, the things will not improve. And
is there going to be a scenario where there is possibility of enforcement of International Court of Justice's, of course, advisory opinion? And if possible, how would this conflict look like?
No, there is no possibility that the International Court of Justice enforcement would happen. But yes, as we know that the annual UN conclave is coming up, and even our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is also going over there. So we hope that within this international, their annual gathering of the world leaders, some sense will prevail in UN, and they will pass some strong statements against Israel. But as I said, nothing is going to happen till the time the US would play a conclusive role in that. And as compared
to... Right, and when you talk about, of course, a US role in all this, Arab American communities are protesting regarding US foreign policy towards the Middle East. Do you think this is going to be impacting domestic politics and upcoming elections? And do you foresee any changes in foreign policy?
Initially, President Joe Biden was taking a lot of interest in the Israeli conflict, and because he was running for the elections. That was why we saw that a peace deal came on the table. But then we also saw the failing of that peace deal, because after President Joe Biden, he withdrew from the election campaign. He lost all his interest in the conflict. And Kamala Harris is currently not focusing on the policies of Joe Biden, and she is trying to pursue her own agenda and her own policy. And we had seen in the recent debate with Donald Trump that she has distanced herself from the Joe Biden's policy. So I don't see that US will be playing any kind of role, because currently President Joe Biden is on a dormant role, and although he's sending his Secretary of State to various countries, but we have seen the recent visit of Secretary of State to Qatar, Egypt, and many other countries was just a lip service, and basically nothing concrete happened. As I said before, that for Israel, these 2 months are very, very important, because they are going to consolidate their power. They are going to put more pressure on Palestinians to move out of Gaza. They are going to have more bombing of Gaza, because they know that neither the Security Council is going to act, nor the Americans are going to act. But I see here a greater role of China over here, because we have seen that in few months back, China was the only country which had brought together all the Palestinian factions together. And so that whenever a ceasefire agreement happens, so it should be the voice of all the Palestinian factions, and the ceasefire agreement should later not be broken by any faction. So I see that in coming days, China and Russia will be playing a greater role. China, of course, will be playing a greater role directly, and Russia indirectly, because Russia is also under sanctions because of the Ukraine war. But China's role is expanding. China will be playing a greater role, as we know that in October, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's head of the government COG meeting happening in Pakistan, and we hope that China will be putting on more pressure on the world leaders in UN on 24th and 25th of September, once the leaders would meet in UN.
Mr. Khalid, when we talk about these recent calls for, of course, two-state solutions, of course, this has been on the picture for quite some time. But how do you think this is going to be impacting the larger peace process and ongoing ceasefire efforts?
Currently, as I say, that this two-state solution and all these things, they all depend on that how the major stakeholders see to it. Although right now they are talking about two-state solution, but the immediate thing is to have a ceasefire. The two-state solution can be implemented maybe after the ceasefire happens, but we all have to see that how the things are going to progress, because within Israel also the government is very, very fragile and weak. Will their own legislatures will agree to that? No, they will not agree to that. What is going to be the reaction of Egypt? What is going to be the reaction of the other Middle Eastern power? Because it's a very blanket thing. Right now, I think it is premature if we say that a two-state solution can be a solution. Right now, the war has to stop. Right now, people have to go back to their settlements. Right now, they have to rebuild the area. The students have to go back to their schools. All these immediate things need to be done first, and then any other solution or any other option can be thought of.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khalid Taimur Akram, for joining us in today's program. Of course, as the war has entered into its 11th month, the international community must not only rely on words of condemnation, but there is need for concrete and meaningful steps to, of course, stop Israel's aggression on Gaza and, of course, surrounding areas. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.